Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to 3D model any piece of furniture in Revit, chairs, tables, benches, whatever, using one exact workflow. We'll be modeling a contemporary chair, but once you understand this process, you can apply it to literally any furniture piece. As soon as you open Revit, you'll land on the main interface. To start creating a family, go to File, New, and Family. Now, I like to use Site as my main family template. I find that this is the easiest when importing into Revit models. And once the family opens, you'll notice that the interface looks different from the standard Revit environment. There are fewer tabs. This workspace is mainly focused on 3D modeling. And for this tutorial, we'll mostly be working under the Create tab. Our reference image for this model is this wiggly chair by the great Frank Gehry. And the first thing I like to do is set up my view. Go to the left elevation view located under elevations in the project browser. This is where we'll establish our reference plane, which will act as the ground level, basically the insertion point when we load this furniture into a project. Next, we're going to import a reference image. This is a side view of the chair I found online. When you're modeling something unique, unconventional, or complex, this is usually the best approach. Most of the time you won't have the perfect drawings. You just have to work with whatever reference you can find. And once the image is imported, we need to scale this. Select the image and click Scale. And choose the base of the chair as your anchor point and scale it to a known dimension. And in our case, it's going to be the base of this chair. I was able to find the chair's height online, and I highly recommend doing a Google image search for your furniture. You'll often find dimensions that'll help you get close to accurate proportions. And once everything is scaled correctly, align the base of the image to the reference plane. And once that's done, pin the image so it doesn't move while we're modeling. Now that that's all set, we're ready to model. Go to Create and Extrusion. Since this chair has a unique profile, we'll be using a spline to trace the shape. Once the spline is drawn, I'm going to be fast forwarding this since it's quite a unique shape and you probably don't want to watch me do this. And once it's all done, we're going to create an offset of that spline that we just drew. In this case, the chair is about 1.5 inch thick. And once the loop is fully closed, we have to make sure that it's fully closed. Otherwise, Revit will throw errors about the open geometry. And after that, we're going to jump into the 3D view, set the detail to fine, and switch the visual styles to shaded. At this point, the profile looks pretty good, but the width isn't there yet. To control the width, I usually create a symbolic line as a reference. Once that's in place, simply just use the extrusion depth arrows on the side. So in this case, I found that it's 13 3/4 wide. And we're using those drag arrows to match with the symbol line. That looks pretty good. Once the geometry is done, we're going to assign a material to the mass. For this example, I created a custom cardboard material using an image texture I found online. I'll be covering materials in a separate video, so we won't go too deep into that here. Now let's look at the mid-century style chair made of walnut with a gray fabric cushion. We'll start the same way. New family, in the Imperial folder, and we're going to be using site. This time we don't have a site reference image, but we do have dimensions. So instead, we'll establish reference lines for the seat height and the chair depth. Whenever I model chairs, I rely heavily on reference lines. They act as a guide for proportions before adding details. Through research, I found that the comfortable height for a chair is about 18 inches. Same goes for the depth, 16 to 18 inch range for the depth. And for the height, I found 30 inches online just for this particular chair. That's for the backrest. Now for this particular chair, we're going to want to split this chair into two main components. So I'm going to start with the sides, which is the legs. We're going to split it into the cylindrical backrest and the legs, which is just a flat extrusion. So the legs is just a one continuous piece, so the main challenge here is matching the radius and the proportions as closely as possible to the image. Now remember, this workflow is about modeling from images, so if we don't have perfect construction drawings, or we don't really have those perfect side photos, so from Google image search, I found that the backrest diameter is about 20 inches. So we're going to create a circle with a 10-inch radius and try and align it with the outer edges of the legs. Based on the image, I'd say the leg thickness is around 1.5 to 2.5 inches. Again, symbolic lines help a lot here for snapping and mirroring the geometry. In this case, we're going to be mirroring it so it can be perfectly symmetrical. Now that that's all lined up, we're going to be blending the cylindrical backrest into the legs. Now in this, we're going to go to the reference level again, the plan view. Now since this isn't really an exact circle, it's more like a U shape that kind of blends into the legs. Now to create that seamless transition, we're going to be using void forms. Now that that U-shaped is done, we're going to be creating void forms to create that illusion of a seamless transition. Now when creating void forms, what I like to do is I like to extend them slightly past the geometry. This ensures nothing gets left behind accidentally. You don't want a piece of mass just floating in the space there. It looks like we forgot to account for the geometry or the radius for that back seat area there. Sometimes lines won't unjoin properly. If that happens, just click the unjoin button and continue. That's looking pretty good. Now it looks like it's just missing that cushion. Now to model that, we're gonna have to go back to the left side view. And just looking at the photo, you can kind of tell that the cushion extends past that wooden frame. So that's how we're going to be modeling it. This one's very simple. One of my favorite parts about modeling here in Revit is this fillet tool and the trim command. It's very intuitive. There's a billion ways to model in Revit. I like to use mirror, trim, offsets. As you can notice, the cushion kind of goes through that backrest. So what we're going to do is we're going to create some voids again. Now sometimes once you create the void, it's going to be orange. That just means it hasn't cut anything yet. Now all you have to do is click the mask and click the cut on the top left of that interface under modify and click the void, and now you're all set. Now back to my favorite part, which is assigning materials to the mask. And like the previous chair that we made, I've pre-made these custom materials for this. These are just patterns that I found online. And like I said, I'd be happy to cover that in another video. And there you have it. This is a very repeatable workflow you can use to model almost any furniture piece in Revit, even when all you have is an image from the internet. If you found this useful, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and please comment below with any Revit tips or ideas you'd like me to cover next. Thanks for watching.